In 1998, Sega would release their final competitor in the console wars, the Sega Dreamcast. A console that, unfortunately until 2019 at Salt Lake Gaming Con, I had no experience in ever playing. Alongside their prior financial and critical failures with the CD and 32X add-ons for the Sega Genesis, aka Mega Drive, and the Saturn, Sega would bow out of the console race and become a multi-platform developer. Of course, they were not willing to let their games be left behind, so they would port games of their last console to their former rivals. Most shockingly, even with Nintendo, as both Sonic Adventure games will be ported to the GameCube. Out of order, but I digress. But the first Sonic Adventure game, known as Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, would also get a port to Windows PC. And in 2010, the game would receive yet another port, this time on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the PC. Again. Anyway, how does Sonic's first Dreamcast romp fare, mostly with this port? Let's find out. The story of the game involves Sonic and his friends going after the Chaos Emeralds and conflict with Dr. Robotnik, or Eggman if you will, but the mad scientist has a new trick up his sleeve, an ancient water beast named Chaos, who has the power to consume Chaos Emeralds and gain more power. With that, Sonic and pals must work to stop Robotnik once again, and even with some characters having their own stories that add at least a little or not much at all. The plot is simple, but it works. In contrast to the main 2D platformers, Sonic Adventure does some changes in the series' transition to 3D. Rather than all the characters get similar platforming experiences with some differences in their abilities, rules of gameplay completely change for each character. Sonic has the more classic speed and platforming with a snowboarding mission and some on rails on the side. Tails, while has the same as Sonic, has most of his levels where he must race another character. Knuckles has a scavenger hunt, Amy Rose must run from a robot stalking her, Big the Cat just fishes, and E102 Gamma has some shooting. But of all the characters, I think Sonic and Tails have the best levels. I know, kind of cliche to say, but they feel like a fully realized 3D Sonic game, at least for its time. But I'll admit, even they have their flaws, like it's kind of needlessly sluggish to control them even with a controller. Meanwhile, Knuckles, while I appreciate the change from his platforming roots, I got kinda bored of scavenger hunting after a while. Amy being chased down doesn't feel all that thrilling after at least 2 levels, and Gamma's shooting stages are kinda sloppy with all the locking on before shooting, and even then with only limited aim. But the worst offender is Big the Cat. As his levels involve fishing, you really need the patience of fishing in real life to get through, at least almost. If it was a minigame, fine. It would just be on the side. But the fact that you have to do this in order to get all the campaign cleared up is just bad and feels like a major halt with the amount of action involved. Plus, Big can't fight worth a damn until Sonic Heroes. Thankfully, there are not many levels in this part of the campaign, so you don't suffer that much. Speaking of minigames, some can be found around the map like a bumper cart racer thing in an amusement park. Even the regular missions have shorter side missions to add to the emblems to collect. Not all of them are great, granted, but it's fine that they are there. But what also aren't great are the controls. The game plays best with a controller, as it was a console game when it came out initially. But still, there's something kinda sluggish about it, like there is a bit of delay every time Sonic and friends jump. That being said, it's way better than the clusterfuck that is the keyboard controls, which is what I first played the game with as a kid, as that was all available to me at the time, but gee whiz, it's awful. Above all, have a USB controller on hand, you will need it. Another thing to note are the visuals. Keep in mind, I never played the original version on the Dreamcast, but the 2010 port in particular has a weird mishmash of cleaner visuals from the original version, based on the videos I've seen, but with much of the main characters quote-unquote improved with a sort of weird cel shading look, which is just off-putting to say the least. What is kind of misleading is that this version still calls itself the Director's Cut, even if at least some of the content from the prior release was stripped. Notably, the unlockable mini compilation of Sega Game Gear games. Yeah, not every game on that compilation was great, but it was interesting to see Sonic in 8-bit, and having thrown in the 2003-2005 release made it a nice bonus. One thing does hold up about Sonic Adventure: the soundtrack, be it Open Your Heart by Crush 40 and even the level tracks by Jun Seno and his team. Another thing kind of addictive, at least I thought so as a kid, was raising little creatures called Chao. Overall, however, and despite the fact that I have some fun with it still, Sonic Adventure DX on PC sadly isn't a great experience, marked down by sloppy controls, and in the case of the 2010 port, being a misleading title from the prior release due to some stripped bonus content. Still, to Sonic fans like me, it's worth picking up to see where it all started in its 3D adventures.